Well, hello and welcome to the show. In this one, there's going to be three parts, at least three parts. There may be a fourth to do some discussion afterwards to give you some ideas. But what this is about, this very first one, is about mounting a mini split condensing unit to a brick veneer exterior. And we can go ahead and get started with that. So after doing an assessment, I know I have brick veneer on the outside, and I don't know where studs are. I can probably try to guess off of a window that I have next to it and measure over, but we're talking quarter inch, half an inch. If it's off, it may split a stud, and I don't want to violate the structure. So what you see here is the result of taking a stud finder, coming across, find and center, mark it, come across, find, center, mark it, locate the stud this way. Then on this side, when I have my stud, I should mark the outside edges. I came in with a hole saw, or what we call a hand saw, we'd even call it a keyhole saw, punched through close to the stud, sawed in until I could feel the angle of the stud. Did the angle of the stud feel like the stud was straight? Yes, feeling pretty lucky on that. So then I come over to the other side, find the other side of the stud, make sure I know exactly where it is. Then I kind of use that keyhole saw to open up and make a hole big enough to get a long drill bit through. This thing's, I don't know, about 36 inches, 24, something like that. And I use that to try to angle in, let me back up a little bit, try to angle in, my finger may focus, and then get it, so I'm feeling the edge of the sheathing and the stud, try to go in and find that corner, and then level that drill bit up, drill through the sheathing till I'm in that space between, the interstitial space between the brick veneer and the sheathing. Did that on both sides. Then I come through and use a drill bit and punch through from the inside out, hoping as best I can to be dead square up against, parallel with the edge of that stud. And I'll go out to the outside and show you where we are right now. All right, I don't know if that made a lot of great sense to you, so I'll recover that again because I think that's the hardest part, doing your layout on this. And what I had was one of these, keyhole saw. So I used that stud finder to find the studs to find out if they're truly on 16-inch centers, and they were perfect 16-inch centers. So then I went and punched through the hole, sawed a little bit to get it straight to find the edge of that stud without really cutting the stud, then came back in with that first long drill bit to find that corner where the sheathing and the stud were, and then pull it so I'm just right up against it and drill through. Now I can't drill through the brick with that drill bit, so I had to use that masonry bit. Once that masonry bit went through the outside brick, it's pretty hard to miss where the stud is. So I did that, and again, that little bracket was too narrow to span three studs, and I'll talk about something that, as great as this is, it could have possibly been better had I thought about the lines a little bit more and the jump that I have to come from the overhang around. I probably could have used a different stud in those three studs that it was very close to running through. So now let's look at the next segment. Now here are the two holes, and I was lucky that they came out exactly where I thought they were going to come out, and they did. And that gives me the location of the stud. I have a little piece of stud I use for sanding block, and I put it between the two holes to try to find center and estimated it here. This is a piece of black gas pipe. So since I accurately located this on the inside, I located this stud and the next one. I can only catch two studs in this configuration because of the length of it. I've got a window to that side. I have the spot where the lines will come down and disconnect I previously installed. So it's sitting there, and I want to have it as close to the middle of this wall as possible. So that gets me to this position. If you'll notice, here's a piece. You see how that one's kind of looks like it's sticking out? It's because it is. All right, now this is the spacer. It's a piece of, like I said, it's a piece of black gas pipe I had, so I use it as a spacer, and it will go up against the sheathing, not all the way against the stud, but the sheathing, and that will compress a little bit, so I need it a little bit longer for that purpose. I also have a brick wall, and rarely do we find these things perfectly flat. And my idea is I don't want it pulling on the brick. So that one sticks out a little bit, but even before I did, it's just a little bit bougie in the middle, okay? This brick is a rustic style brick. See, it deliberately has these dinks and brown spots in it, so it's really extra wobbly. But I'm going to pull this through here, and right before I put the pilot hole, I'll put a pilot hole through here to hit that center of that stud to keep from splitting that 18-year-old stud. It's been there for a while. I don't want to break it, because I don't want to break the structure. I also don't want the weight hanging on here, and I have some special screws we'll look at in just a minute, next video edit, I think. So what I'll do is I'll get it pre-drilled, get it about where I want, and then when I'll squirt that hole a little bit full of silicone, which will eventually set up, but it'll set up in place. And so it shouldn't have any pressure on it, and I'll have the screws that hold that bracket pulled in real nice and tight. And so I shouldn't be putting any weight directly on the brick, or not much of it. We'll look at the screws here in just a second. There is an extra screw hole. Where's my pointer? Lost my little pointer. I've got it pre-drilled somewhere in here. There it is. And it'll just have a small Tapcon screw. And I'll put, actually, I have some rubber washers. We'll put them in behind and some on top this way, and it's a smaller diameter. So that should give a little bit of movement there. It'll be held there to kind of help hold the bracket from bulging out, but it's not really putting much weight on it, and doesn't have much pull out. These screws that I'm going to use will have some, I think will have sufficient pull out strength, so it's not going to have a problem there. Let's go look at those screws. If you like this content, please go to calldelltosell.com, find the tab that says on YouTube, click it, and it'll open up a page of QR codes. There you can use a smartphone to scan and get to the YouTube page, or you can just mouse over and click it on a PC. There you'll be able to subscribe to this little button over here and click the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you. Thank you. Now, the next little segment, I use a special screw, and I'll show you the layout of how a brick veneer wall usually is. And of course, you can have different dimensioned bricks, so you need a sample of what you actually have. I have some left over from when we built the house, so I still have that, and I know about what depth that is. I've got a little bit of an air gap in there, a piece of sheathing, and a stud. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying not to put that pull out, that main weight, to put the weight on the brick, because I'm so close to the top. If I'm going to break a brick and break a course loose, up at the top where I'm at is most likely going to be where the crack would happen. So I really want to have a good lag screw type of screw into the stud. Now, I didn't use lag screws because lag screws have very fine threads, and I do want to pre-drill the hole through to make sure I'm good and straight and I don't drift off and scoot off to one side of the stud or the other. And I don't want to bust the stud because it is an existing home, existing structure, and I want it to be on the stud. I want the weight on the stud, not on the actual brick itself. Now let's take a look at these screws. Now I happen to have 4-inch and 5-inch timber screws. This is a Simpson Strong Tie product, and I had to order the 6s, and you'll see why in just a second. So these I already had, and these I had to buy. It took me about a week to get them, but there's a reason why I use these. These, first of all, are exterior grade, right? Somewhere on here it says, I'm looking through the, there it is, looking through the phone, looking through the monitor, exterior grade. These are made for timber, and they say you don't have to pre-drill them. I'm going to pre-drill those old dry stud, but these are code approved for like attaching timber together in buildings, and that would be your big solid wood stuff, not your fake box stuff with the 1-bys. So it meets the code for its strength, and they show you doing a stringer or something like that going on top here. So here we have a typical setup like I expect to find. It would be the stud right here, piece of sheathing, which may be blackboard, which will compress more than I think that fiberboard right there is. And of course I have a brick what the house was made with. Now yes, you can go get lag screws. Here, if you do, I would probably get stainless for the purpose that these are going to be in the weather for a while, and this is actually made to be exterior, so it's fine. And this, of course, is a long lag screw, and it's got some pretty fine teeth. Now this is, I don't know if you can tell, but this has got some pretty rough teeth, and it's built for timber. And if let me put it on this side, it's got the light, but the better light. You see, I should have not quite a full penetration. I think the next size up was 8-inch. I don't remember seeing any 7, so I got 6s so I wouldn't come completely through the stud. But that's what we're going to use. And outside, in the previous cut, you saw I have a piece of gas pipe cut as a standoff, and this compresses it this way. It is a little cantilevered a little bit further than I would like, but it's better than hanging on the brick by itself. Now, once I got the horizontal member, the track that allows the condensing unit pretty well much to slide left and right, the track itself was pretty darn close to condensing unit width. But as I put that bracket up there, it's a little less significant where it goes. It can be over left or right an inch or two and still be fairly well supportive because those rails slide in that track, and that works pretty good. Now, the way that I would put it up is I find and locate the position of the condensing unit on the track that's mounted, put the two L brackets on there. Not really so much worried about the leveling because they're going to probably sag a little bit, and they have these little screws that you can adjust the bracket up or down to get it level, and that's kind of what we want. But those also have a little rubber head, so I can always kind of screw them out because they're really just hanging off the track onto the edge. Now I have to locate where the screws that hold them up against the wall, because they keep them from cocking left and right. Once you get the weight on them, it really doesn't matter so much because they're probably not going to move that much. So as I laid it out, I found out that it found a bad spot to put it, so I had to drill some holes. So I drilled some holes with a little bit of slop around where the screw is. Again, so I'm just kind of holding the bracket gently against the wall after I've adjusted them out with the screw adjustment. Okay, does that make sense? So I want to adjust them. I also want to hold them in place so that when I lift the condensing unit up there, they don't try to wiggle out or scoot. Okay, does that makes good sense? And I think on the longer of the video, I think I explained a little bit about working clearance around the disconnect and that sort of thing. So let's look at this next segment. Okay, do you see where those holes lined out right here? They lined out in the mortar, and you don't want to put a screw in the mortar. So I had to drill some holes and go above it till I hit good brick. And I get ready to silicone that in, but I don't know if you can see. There we go. So I've got some rubber biscuits behind it. The light's not good enough to show you. And then there's just one on top, but I got to fill in that little gap with silicone like I did there. Let me get across here and there, and of course there, and it is filled up on the top. And the reason for that, let me step down off the ladder. The reason for that is because even though it's under the eave, I don't want water to get behind there, freeze and break, because that's going to put a lot of pressure between the brick and the bracket. And right now, I do have one light screwed in there. That's just to hold that in. That's not really to support weight, just kind of keep it from twisting a little bit. And that, of course, you see where the two that go directly into this framing stud. And that allows that to have a little bit of a gap there, simply because that's brick and it's not flat. And we'll put the unit on next. All right, if you're familiar, we took the rail and put the stud here. Well, the stud was already there, but we used a hole here, which pushed the bracket just a little bit on the outside, and you can see that special screw. On this side, we just tied into the brick, just to hold it so it wouldn't allow water to get in behind it. And we have, of course, the screws here and here that we used. We put those in, we measured the width so that the feet would line up before we lifted the condensing unit, and they're tied in, but they're only to hold it against the wall. They don't actually have any support, so to speak. We did have to add the extra holes. The weight is on this side. That's where the compressor is. If we go up under here and look, we've got a screw and a screw and a screw on that side. So the compressor sits on this side, and that's the heavy part. And it just happens the heavy part is the one that I don't have the screw to the stud. And I knew that when I was doing it, but here's the reason why. If you look at the top, we'll have to climb up the ladder real quick so you get a good view. So this is flat, this is out. They're flat at the top. This one is out, this one's flat, that one's out. This is called a soldier course. And when the soldier course has the bottom out and in, it's called a walking soldier. It makes sort of like a little dental mold, except dental, we'd pull the top out as well. But the way that trim works, we have that. Now, to catch the stud here, if I had to pull this over, which would have been structurally better, I'd have been right here, and I'd have, really, this is the spot where I want to bring the line set down right in through here. And this would kind of be in the way, because I would need to hit the stud that's somewhere right in about here. And it's possible. Now, this is not a very big condensing unit, so it's not really all that heavy. And if you notice, the shadow hides it. But we also wanted to be far enough this way because we need our work clearance, our 3 feet in front of our disconnect. And I also wanted to have a little bit of room to pull that line set down and kind of tuck it in behind. So it's your choice how you want to do it. I have met the spacing requirements for the condensing unit. And you see I have some leg out here. The reason I did that is because the closer into the studs I get, the less torque I have trying to pull the top part of that bracket away from the wall. And as long as I maintain the engineer's requirement for height above, around, and behind, I'm in good shape. So that's that. Oh, leveling. You pretty well much have to level it after you get it set because of the weight. But see that big hole? I think that's for the wasp to build a nest in there. No. I think that's the drip hole for when the water runs in the condensing unit, it runs out. And as you can see, obviously, from the height of it, you can easily walk under the condensing unit. Now, why did I go to so much trouble putting it on the top course? To be honest with you, I wanted to be able to walk under it. But I need to replace that screening, if nothing else, because it's just old and needs to be replaced. But I might window that in and put another, and heat and cool that space. Make a little greenhouse. I may even go all the way down and close in the entire back porch and make it a greenhouse. In which case, I'll need a place to mount another condensing unit. Now, I probably could go along the base here and put it there. Or if I ever want to do the garage, I might need another one. So I might be able to get them all stacked right there if I get it tucked up nice and neat up underneath the edge of the house. Now, people say, well, under the right conditions, rain is probably going to come over and overload those 5-inch gutters. And that's okay. It won't be there much, and hopefully it won't be on a day where we got a lot of snow. Let me talk to you real quick. This is just my opinion. Here, there's no grass to trim around this. I keep this mulched up. But if I was going to put it on the wall and put it directly into the brick veneer, I think I would do it on the very low courses because I would have the entire weight of the wall sitting down on top of it to keep the brick maybe from scooching out, breaking out. And it's also a small unit, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But this is brick veneer, not a brick wall. And let me explain the difference. See, right here we see a cap row. It's actually going across 2 widths of brick. So this is actually a brick wall. It's not fully structural because they didn't come down here about 4 bricks up and do a row lock. We just put a row lock on the top just so that we would have it pretty and not have the brick show. But a true brick wall is going to have a set of these little squares showing up over so many rows, layers of brick. It's going to come up and there'll be another one of these, and it'll come up and it'll be another one of these, and it'll come up and it'll be another one of these. And that's a structural brick wall. That's one way you can look at it and see that's a structural brick wall. This is just brick veneer like most brick is. And this is a southern thing. Brick predominates in the south and the southeast, down where we have a lot of clay to make bricks with. Why might you want to raise it up off the ground? Well, when in doubt, just the easy way is just put it on a pad. And use a bigger pad, maybe one that's about 6 inches bigger in all dimensions, so that you can put the pad up against a wall or whatever you might have and have enough room so if you did have grass grow in, you could weed eat around that pad without ever getting close to the unit. That's one way to do it. They also make, if you like a small pad, you don't have the room, you can put a small pad, and then on top of that, they make a little bracket for these condensing units so you can elevate it. We're in Tennessee, so we don't have a lot of snow. We don't have a lot of ice, we don't have a lot of snow, and so we don't have to worry about obstructing the area right here where the air has to flow through the fan. I don't have to worry about the fan, icing up and seizing and that kind of thing, because we just don't have that much of it. So I personally just wanted to get it up, and that's the end of the mounting segment. We will do, we'll probably do the connection as a third video. We have a video on the condensing unit. We have a video on the upstairs unit. We'll probably do the connection as a separate video to keep this from going too long. Well, I hope that helps. I know that last segment was a lot of talking, but I think it's important from the standpoint that a lot of people don't discuss the rationale why they do things. And, these videos could be anywhere in the world, anywhere in the United States. And some of the considerations, like I say, if you're down south, you may not have. If you're up north, the same thing, your house, which direction it faces and whatnot. Now, my house pretty well much, it runs north and south, and it faces the west. So in the morning, the sun comes up actually into the condensing unit. So it's going to be cold in the morning if the sun comes and hits it. But in the afternoon, in the evening, we do have the sun going down. We throw the shadows toward the backyard. And so it may give it a little bit of shading during the normal day. Again, we don't get a lot of snow. I would like to at least have it elevated a little bit, so I'm not likely to throw as much grass and dirt and stuff if I mow when I'm mowing the grass. Plus, this way I do have the extra room to mount another condensing unit below it if I decide to do that in the future. I hope this was good for you. Do like and comment and subscribe, and if you see something that looked like a real bonehead move, go ahead and leave your opinion. We don't always have to agree. And I think this was a good shot at it. It's not that heavy. Probably could have gotten by. I just would rather have gone into the studs like I did, but probably should have gone the other stud in and just had the line set jump over where that screw head was. But I didn't. but still awfully darn strong.